My name is Scott. I'm a senior career advisor at the Rizzy Career Center. So one thing I will say, and just echo a ton, please come see us. Like, we exist to be a resource for you from the day you kind of step foot on Rizzy's campus, actually forever. So this is like the thing that blows people's minds sometimes. We're not just a resource for you while you're here during the 4 or 5 years that you're here as undergrads. We are a resource for you for life. So as alums encounter career challenges in their lives, they can still meet with us wherever they are in the world, whether they're right down the street in Providence, whether they're on the West Coast, whether they're in India, China, doesn't matter. We can meet with students as well as alums throughout their careers for career guidance. So just keep that in mind. I know that might feel like a long ways away, but we're here for you is the basic message, and we'll get things kicked off. So I want to take a second just to sort of establish who we are and what we do at the Rizzy Career Center. So this is our mission, and I will take a second just to read it. So our mission is to educate and advise all students and alumni on how to effectively translate their education and creativity into fulfilling professional experiences. We do this with deep respect for individual differences and for each person's unique aspirations and goals. And so the reason I wanted to take a little bit of time to read that is I think it's worth just emphasizing that we are all here for you and to support whatever your career aspirations and goals are. So in other words, we don't have this like predisposed notion of what career success is. Every person defines their own success. Somebody might think of success as, I'm studying sculpture and I want to be able to become a public artist one day who's doing sculptural installations in really prominent public spaces that really impact people's lives every day. Another person might say to themselves, I really love technology, and so I want to work, doing design work in big tech. Or maybe I want to be a creative freelancer because I want to have the freedom and ability to work with all different kinds of clients and all different kinds of projects, or anything in between. That's like 3 options of 1,000. But my point is, you get to determine that. That's kind of why you're here, right? Is to sort of learn these creative skills that you're ultimately going to sort of synthesize and bring together into a creative career of some kind and of your own making. And so I think it's really worth kind of thinking about this mission. And I think what it means to us is that we're here to support you and we're here to help you get to your goals, whatever those may be, and kind of not the other way around. It's not for us to tell you what your goals should be. Cool. So I want to take a little bit to just talk about how we are a resource to you. And there are many ways we are, but one of the things that you can do is access us for advising meetings, personalized one-on-one advising meetings. And this is really, in a lot of ways, the core of what we do as an office. We do a lot of things, but I think one of the most important, if not most important, is just to be here to have one-on-one real conversations with you about your own career goals and just talk it out. Because I think sometimes my career, right, can feel like a really big conversation and it can feel daunting, but it, like anything in life, if you can talk it out, break it down into chunks and manageable segments, it becomes a lot more easy to understand, easy to manage, and we can help you with that, again, from like now till the end of time. So this is just a small snippet of different ways or different topics or kind of areas that we can work with first-year students on. So I don't want you to think it's like limited to this, but some of you may already know what you're going to go into next year in terms of a major, but we can be a part of that conversation, especially if you're still having doubts or you're having to choose between, 1, 2, or 3 that you are kind of really focused on or you think are options for you. We can talk to you about that. And one of the things that we can talk about in that conversation is sort of looking at potential career paths that exist when you study major X, right, versus major Y. That, RISD is a really fun and cool place on a lot of levels. One of those levels is that your major never truly defines what you can do professionally, but it does teach you certain things and you're going to learn certain things depending on what department you go into. So it is helpful to kind of know, what am I going to learn and what does that translate to really easily in the professional world? That doesn't mean you don't have options beyond that, but it is helpful. It can inform how you decide what major you're going into. This is a biggie that some of you may be thinking about, or at least maybe starting to think about, and that's internships. And essentially, we can help you on lots of levels with that. One is to learn how to effectively search and find internship opportunities, but also even kind of before that step, there's how do you prepare for it? What kinds of materials do you need to create? How do you apply for internships? How do you navigate that process so that you're using your time effectively and you're doing it with a high likelihood of success? I sort of spoke to that just now in terms of crafting professional application materials, but to put a finer point on it, when I say that, I'm talking about things like a resume, things like a portfolio, things like cover letters or artist statements, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we go, but we can help you develop these things so you're not kind of on an island figuring this stuff out. We also can help those who are interested in, what can be termed artist opportunities. And so that might be considered exhibition opportunities to show your work, artist grants, artist residency programs. I will touch on, if you're unfamiliar with what a grant is or what an artist residency program is, don't worry, you're probably not alone, first of all. And secondly, we'll touch on that so I can kind of explain what I mean by those things. But for those who are considering a little bit more of a fine art path, getting familiar with exhibition opportunities, but also understanding and knowing how to apply to artist grants and artist residencies can be a helpful part of kind of building your artistic track record. So we'll go into that a little bit later, but we can also advise on it in terms of if you met with us for a one-on-one appointment. Oh, what are the ways to meet with us for an appointment? News is there's a couple different ways. So we try to be as accessible as possible. One way is to schedule an appointment in advance. So you can either schedule a 30 or 45-minute appointment with us to meet. These can be either in office or remote. If you prefer to do Zoom or phone, you can do that option. Also, if you happen to be not on campus at any given time or over the summer, we are open, by the way. You can meet with us wherever you're at, and that can be in person or I should say remote or over the phone. So you have options here in terms of the modality. The way you schedule an appointment is via a platform that we manage called Artworks, which I will show you in a little bit. You can also, if you just Google Rizzy Artworks or you go to our website, which I'll also show you, it's very easy to find Artworks if you haven't signed up for it or you have no idea what I'm talking about. It's really easy to sign up. Just your single sign-on, so it's just your RISD credentials is what allows you to get in, and that allows you to schedule appointments and do a few other things, which we'll talk about. So that's scheduling appointments. Aside from scheduling appointments, you can also just drop into our office. You don't have to have a scheduled appointment. And when you do that, you do it during our drop-in hours. And so if you come to our office during our drop-in hours, you can have a 15 to 20-minute kind of quick advising session. So these aren't as long as the scheduled appointments. So they're better for sort of like shorter, quicker questions than a full-fledged appointment. But we do them every day. So on Monday and Friday, they're 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So you can walk into our office anytime during that window. And during the middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So a little bit of a shorter window there. But again, don't need an appointment. All you need to do, walk in, say you're here for a drop-in, and you'll be able to meet with an advisor and ask your career-oriented questions. These are in person only, so you do have to kind of show up physically to the office to do the drop-in advising. Any questions about advising or anything I've touched on so far, how to access us that way? Make sense? Cool, okay. I'll be referencing the website a bit, and I'll be showing it to you and actually kind of like doing some kind of video demos so you can get familiar with it. But if you want to learn more about appointments, we have a whole page on our site in the Meet Us section that breaks down how to do all of it. So the advising appointments are a big part of how we work with students, but it's not the only part. Another big thing that we do is we offer career programs and workshops. You're actually at one of those right now. We do over 30 throughout the course of the year. So there's a ton across fall, winter session, and spring. that we offer to students. There's a huge range of topics that these programs tend to be on. I will give you just kind of I'll highlight like 4 or 5 so you can kind of get a sense of what these look like. So this happened already, but just a few weeks ago, we had Jason deliver a talk and a presentation on creating your portfolio and/or demo reel. So if that's something that you are starting to kind of think about in terms of like, okay, I'm developing this creative work, how do I present it to the professional world? We have talks and workshops on that. It's also something you can come speak with us about. That's an example. Coming up in spring, we'll have a workshop on finding jobs and internships if you want to start to explore that world. If interviewing is a scary thing to you and you're kind of worried about having to do that in the future, we have a program in the spring called Interviewing in the Hot Seat. This is actually kind of cool. So this will probably be a Zoom webinar and not an in-person talk. But what this is essentially we actually have 2 RISD students, 2 like actually current RISD students who do a video interview with 2 actual employers, and you get to kind of like watch from the audience and kind of see what that experience is like. So it's actually like a really cool model. And we do it usually, there's like one interview that's a little bit more design centric, one that's a little bit more fine art leaning. So depending on where you are on that spectrum or what major you're in, it should be relevant. That's a really cool way to sort of like start to understand what interviewing is about without the pressure of having to go through it yourself. Excuse me. We'll also have one coming up in the spring for finding exhibition opportunities. And this is cool. This will probably be like a panel style event where gallery directors and curators will actually share their opinion and perspective on what do they look for when they are evaluating artists to show for their shows or to represent in their galleries. So again, if you're sort of like thinking about a fine art leaning career path where you want to show your work or potentially work with galleries in some way, this could be a really good one to check out. Again, that was just a sampling. We do over 30 of these a year. So this is not the full list, but I wanted to just kind of give you a flavor of the types of things that you can keep an eye on. So what I would encourage is every Monday during the semesters, we send out an email with that week. It's like looking ahead the next week and the following week of all the programs that we have coming up. So just if you can, I know you have a lot going on and I know you get a ton of emails at RISD, so I get it. But if you can just take a peek at that email every once in a while, it'll help you really keep tabs on what we're up to. And there's a link right in there to register for that program if you want to. And then of course you'll get email reminders about it and all that good stuff. So that Monday email with the upcoming programs, try to open it, see if there's something in the mix that you want to attend. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about just a bit on internships and jobs and how you can kind of start to explore this. So I know as a first-year student, both of these things, jobs especially, like full-time work after graduation probably feels really far away. But even internships might feel somewhat far away. And that's okay. My goal is definitely not to rush you into anything. But like anything in life, if you start to like explore and kind of dip your feet into stuff and you do it in chunks and you do it like a little bit at a time, it becomes a lot more manageable. You can kind of understand it at your own pace instead of feeling like crunched in like, you know, a year from now, you feel like, oh my God, I want an internship, but I don't know where to start. If you can start thinking about it now and building up your kind of exposure to what you need to do to get an internship now, it's going to make the process a lot easier. So that's why I want to talk about it a little bit, even though you may not be in that zone just yet, and that's okay. I mentioned Rizzy Artworks. Who has like heard of this? And it's totally okay if you haven't. Okay, cool. So a lot of you have. So I'm really happy to hear that. So this is good. This might not be that foreign to many of you, but I do want to just show you a little bit about it, especially in terms of how it can be useful to explore and find professional opportunities. So for those who don't know what it is, I mentioned Rizzy Artworks is a platform that our office manages, and it's basically like a Rizzy exclusive platform where companies and organizations, artists, designers host internship opportunities, job opportunities, artist opportunities like gallery shows, call for entries, artist grants and awards, those types of things, fellowships, etc. So if you're reaching a point where you're saying like, I want to see what's out there in the professional world, and again, kind of like start to envision what opportunities might be available to me based upon like my skill set and what I'm studying, this is a good place to start. It's not the only way to do that, but it's definitely a good place to start. So there are at any given time hundreds of open opportunities that you can find on Rizzy Artworks. You can set up email alerts for specific types of opportunities that fit you, which I'll show you in a second. And there's even an employer directory where you can actually like essentially like search by industry or by major and find a bunch of different employers that have hired from Rizzy before, which is also pretty cool. So again, link to this is on our website, but I do want to just do a little demo. This is what Artworks looks like. And if you log in and click on this OCI and job listings section, what you can do is then kind of search by filters. So in this example, this person is searching by internship. So they've selected internship and they are majoring in industrial design. So they've labeled that as their major. And what it does is pull back a list of results that match. So these are internships where the employer has said, we're interested in speaking or hiring, speaking with ID majors. And you can click on any given opportunity like this one, this fellows program from Kleiner Perkins, and read about the opportunity, see what you'd have to do to be able to apply. This is a cool feature. When you set a criteria, so in this case, internships and ID as the major, you can turn on an email alert that basically means any new opportunity that comes in that matches that criteria that you've set, you get an automated email that's sent to your Rizzy email. So it's a really cool way to sort of like, once you set the search criteria that you're interested in, you'll automatically get weekly emails sent to your email inbox. And in that email, it will have new opportunities that are coming into Artworks that fit. So like in this case, anytime there was an internship that was related to industrial design, that person would get that notice. They'd see the position, they could click on it, get taken right to the position in Artworks. So it's a super time saver and a cool way, even if you're not like, again, even if you're feeling right now, like I'm not quite ready to apply for internships, still a good idea because you can set your criteria and start to just kind of see what's out there and like read the different opportunities and get a flavor for it. So it's useful kind of wherever you're at in the process. Just take a little water break. There are a lot of other features in Artworks that I'm not going to dive into because I've got a lot of ground to cover with y'all. But if you're not, in Artworks yet, very easy. Again, like the sign-in is just your single sign-on, so it's super easy to join. You can start playing around the platform and start doing some searches. This is fun. If it comes back to life. There we go. That was weird. A fun little thing I like to do. So I just want to show you some examples of companies, studios, organizations that have hired from Rizzy that have like posted their positions in Artworks before. So it's sort of an example of like the type of thing you might find. So Walsh is a creative kind of branding and advertising agency based in New York. And the founder, sort of dead center in the middle there, Jessica Walsh, is a Rizzy graphic design alum. And they do a lot of really, really cool work and have hired multiple interns across illustration, graphic design, FAV, lots of different majors in the past. A lot of people know Cartoon Network, so this might not be like a new company that you've never heard of. But for illustration or animation oriented students, it's a really, really cool company to know about. They have one of the things I like about them is they have a production, it's called like a production assistant internship. It's actually pretty cool because in that role, you sort of assist with all different areas of the animation pipeline. So you get to kind of like work on a given show and assist with all different aspects from like, concept art phase to the animation phase to voiceover recording. It's like really a really cool way to get exposure to the animation pipeline. Liz Collins is also an alum, and as you can kind of see from the image, a fiber and textile-based artist. They've also taught at Rizzy before as well. So really dynamic individual and an amazing example of sort of what the education can produce in terms of amazing artwork. And they've hired interns as well in the past. Department of Motion Pictures is a film production company, as you can maybe kind of glean from what they're showing on their web page here. Lots of cool stuff. They They're the production company behind Beasts of the Southern Wild, which is like probably 5 or 6 years old at this point. If any of you have seen it, it's a really cool movie, Academy Award winner and nominee both, I believe. Aside from just being a really cool production company, another thing that's interesting about them is that they've hired multiple interns from multiple different majors, ranging from sculpture artists who are interested in kind of set design to illustrators who are interested in doing storyboards, like a real range. Can't see the name here, but this is the website of Doreen Garner, who is a Glass alum and fine artist. And this is an exhibition that you're seeing that they were a part of at Pioneer Works, which is a really cool artist residency program in New York. And Doreen is a great example of somebody who, took this education and kind of made it their own in terms of the artwork that they wanted to create, and has really taken off post RISD and is a really prominent and successful fine artist. Raymond Jungles is a architectural firm. And as you can kind of tell from this snapshot of their website, this is a project they did for the Ford Foundation Center for Social Justice, but their big thing is integrating natural elements into the built environment, which is a really cool way to kind of approach architecture for one. And in these times where climate change is obviously an incredibly pressing issue, their work is probably more valuable than it's ever been. Also Limited is a kind of art and design technology company. They do a lot of technology-based, they essentially merge art and design with tech to create these really innovative public installations that cause people to pause and kind of have these moments of reflection. So really cool if you're somebody who's interested in not just art and design, but how does tech sort of intersect with that. They're a cool example of a type of company that you might consider. Museum of Arts and Design in New York, really notable museum, of course. One of the things, aside from having hired interns before, one of the things that I really like about MAD is what you're seeing on the screen here. There aren't too many museums that do this. They have actual artist studios in the museum, and they actually have like a residency program where they invite artists to be there, I think for about 6 months. I think it's like 6 to 9 months. And the artist like makes their studio in the museum, and which is like super cool. They have access to all the different things that the museum has to offer. But on top of that, the public is kind of welcome during certain hours to kind of come in and see the artists in their space and like see how they make. It's a really, really innovative model for how artists are interacting with a museum, how the public is interacting with artists, all the above. Really cool place. Abby Litman is a alum from RISD and has her own surface design and textile design company. So what you can kind of see on the screen is that she is designing these original artworks, these original patterns that then get sold and licensed to most of the time apparel companies or textile manufacturers to be then placed on product. So that's like a kind of a whole division of a career and industry that you can have. Rich Brilliant Willing, or RBW, is another RISD co-founded company from grads from furniture design, I believe. Almost maybe 1 or 2 is ID. Furniture design? All furniture design. Yeah, thought I was right about that. Thanks, Gary. So you can kind of tell they do all original high design lighting objects, a little bit of furniture too, but mostly lighting. Aside from them being a RISD founded company, another thing that I love and is very notable about RBW is their certified B Corp. So it's kind of like a newer business entity, but just kind of planting the seed for you all to know about it. So like a B Corp, basically if you're a B Corp, you kind of commit to being really socially and civically responsible. So you kind of have to like essentially submit a survey or a test every year that kind of shows that you are being environmentally responsible, socially responsible. So it's always a good sign to me if a company is a B Corp, because it means like not only do they care about making money and being successful in like traditional business terms, but they also care about their impact on the world. So I'm just throwing that out there as like a good thing to know about, but it's cool that RBW is one of those companies. The New House. New House is also a RISD co-founded company, also furniture grads, just to say. But as you can kind of see, they're really unique. They do these Inflatable sculptures. So pretty much all of their work has some kind of inflatable element to it. And they're all, for the most part, these kind of public installations that people can interact with, walk through, experience in different ways. Work is really, really cool. They actually just had, shout out to Jason for pointing this out, but they actually just had a collaboration with NASA, which is pretty cool, where they were kind of doing inflatable, sort of like in testing the idea of inflatables on Mars and how that would work. So really just amazing, dynamic studio and company. Converse, many of you probably heard of and know about, just to kind of like, show you the huge range here. They're right down the road. They're not far away in terms of their headquarters being basically right in Boston. So that's always cool. And another example of a place that has hired from a huge range of majors and companies, from apparel, textiles, graphic design, illustration, FAV. I'm leaving out a bunch, but just to give you a sense of where they hire from. Mighty Oak is a cool, another RISD founded company. You can kind of tell they do like cut paper and handcrafted animation, which is a really kind of unique niche within the animation world. And they're also an entirely female-founded studio, women-founded studio, which is also a really cool thing. And they're co-founded by two grads from the FAV department. And last but not least, another RISD RISD alumni co-founded studio, Eckhouse, which does their apparel company. They tend to do a lot of work with knitwear, but not exclusively. Really, as soon as they kind of graduated and founded the company, really took the fashion world by storm, been successful ever since. One thing that's kind of notable about them, sort of representative of a little bit what I was saying before, where like what you choose as a major matters, but it doesn't necessarily define you. So the two co-founders of this, I think, graduated from sculpture and jewelry or painting, I want to say. Point I'm making is neither one graduated from apparel or textiles, and they went on to found an apparel company. So my point is, you can do things that are outside of your major if you work hard enough and your creative interests kind of take you in that direction. So just to say. Still on this topic of internships, I also just want to kind of plant the seed for something that is going to be down the line a little bit for you. And that's an event that we have every fall called Internship Connect. And so next year, this is actually going to be in person for the first time, essentially since the pandemic in 2020. So basically what this is it's a chance for students and employers, people who are hiring interns, to be able to like come together and talk about opportunities. So basically the way that it'll work, and you can kind of get a sense from the images there that are on the screen, there'll be this sort of like large space, and each company will kind of have their own little table where they're kind of set up, and you'll know in advance like who's attending, so you can like, do some digging and explore their websites and stuff. But you'll have the opportunity to like walk up to them, ask them questions about their company, ask them questions about their internships, what kind of internships do they have, what skills and qualities do they usually look for. And there'll be most likely over 50 plus different studios, companies across fine art and design at that event. So it's a great way for you to kind of like start to learn about internships, make some connections that could lead to interviews and actual possible internship opportunities. And start to like, grow your professional and creative network outside of RISD. So when you're at RISD, it's totally understandable, you're in class or in studio all day, maybe you're doing like clubs and stuff like that, you get in a little bit of a RISD bubble, right? And that's just normal. That's like a very normal thing that happens at every college. But you want to, in small ways, start to like puncture that bubble and find ways to break out of it, so you can envision like, how does what I do in studio here, or how does this portfolio project that I'm working on, how does this connect to the outside world, right? How does this connect to what is possible for me professionally, creatively? And so why I'm saying like this is a chance for you to sort of like grow your creative network outside of RISD, it's a chance to sort of puncture that bubble a little bit, and we try to provide those opportunities for you. That makes sense? Cool. There's a whole website for this event. It already happened for this year. So we're sort of past the window where you could take advantage of this in your first year. But next year, once you're in your major and you're in sophomore year, you'll be able to access this and take advantage of it. So again, this is more of a thing to keep in mind for the future. You can learn more about it at the website for the event. Come talk to us about it. Any questions you have. I mentioned earlier that we're a resource for assisting you to develop your application materials and the things, essentially the things you'll need one day at some point to apply to professional opportunities. And I think a lot of times this can feel daunting, especially if you've never done it before. You don't know what goes on a resume, or you don't know what's the best way to, what pieces to show in your portfolio, what's the best way to show them, even what modality to show them in. So if you're tackling it on your own, it can feel daunting, but like anything else, if you have people to ask questions and kind of help guide you through it, it becomes less scary. So I'm going to talk about a few examples here. For this section, I'm going to do a lot of showing you our website. And the reason, it's not just to like plug our website. The reason is we've put a lot of effort into having our website be essentially like an educational tool. So the idea being like, yeah, we want to be here for you if you want to come to us and talk with us in a one-on-one appointment. But if it's like 2 a.m. and you're getting out of studio and you have a question like pops into your head, like, oh, I want to start applying to things. I wonder, how to build my resume. The good thing is the website's open 24/7, and there's a lot of content on here that you can kind of check out and at least get started on before you have an appointment. So I wanted you to kind of know that this is here for you and kind of point out some specific sections. So I'll show you this in a second, but there's a whole section of our website it's called Career Prep. And it's all built around being able to help you with kind of core specific parts of career development that you're likely to encounter. I'm highlighting a few like resumes, cover letters, and portfolios as examples. I'll just jump right to the video here. So this is our website. You go to this career prep section, and on this page, for one, there's like a suggested timeline in terms of like when to start developing these materials. But as you scroll down, you'll notice there's all these subsections for these kind of key areas that are important when it comes to your career development and building your professional application materials. So I'm just going to use cover letter as an example. I could click into this page, and it's essentially a guide. It essentially helps you understand what a cover letter is, how to write one, why it's important. And then also, if you need more, we even have these recorded video tutorials where somebody from our staff is literally walking you through what a cover letter is, how to write one, and showing examples. So it's a really, really good way, if you can't get the advising help you need in that moment, to be able to learn more about a given topic. I want to dive into this a little bit deeper, especially with resumes and cover letters. The other thing that you can find, so again, kind of on this career prep page, if we scroll down, and especially with relevance to resumes, if you click on that section, there's this link to this RISD resume examples PDF. So what this is, and you'll see in a second, we've constructed this document, which is basically actual examples, changed a little bit and sort of, in some cases, kind of Frankenstein monstered together, but examples of actual resumes, like RISD examples, also cover letters as well. And they're all paired together. So you can see the resume and the cover letter example paired. And there's a huge range. I know I'm scrolling through it quick, but there's a huge range in terms of style, formatting, majors, level in school, basically a range that's going to cover pretty much any scenario that you might encounter. So again, if you're sort of like just starting off with resumes or don't know where to start, this is a great resource to be able to like see actual examples, start to see the language that's used, the sections that are used are common in a resume, and you can start to use this as a model to build your own. And then maybe a good next step after that would be, oh, I can go to drop-ins, I can have somebody look at it, give it a quick critique, and then you're kind of on your way with resumes and feeling more confident about it. Portfolios, another big part of like your professional application package that you will need down the line. So again, similar idea. We've got this section on our website, which speaks to how to develop portfolios and also kind of resources that are going to be helpful. I'll just show you that. I don't know what that did. Okay. I'll just show you what this kind of looks like, and you'll be able to kind of see how this page could be helpful. There we go. So similar thing, go to that career prep section and go to the portfolio page. So there's a lot of content on here that's going to be useful, and we will just sort of like do a breakdown of what a portfolio, what a portfolio is, and what are the different modalities. But one of the things you might think about is starting to develop a portfolio website. And the good news is there's actually tools like Adobe Portfolio that make it really easy to do this. So these are actually like free templates that you can use where you can actually like essentially see what the layout of your website would be. They're kind of like showing examples here. You can choose the template that you like, and then all you really have to do is upload your work, choose how you want to describe it. Of course, it's still a major step, but you don't have to like code your own website from scratch. You can use a template that you like, that you feel is designed well, and you feel like would represent you and your work well, and then kind of just plug it in. The other reason I highlighted Adobe Portfolio, just FYI, is it's free. So it comes essentially as part of the Adobe Creative Suite, which you all have a free subscription to through RISD. So I'm not saying you have to use Adobe Portfolio, but it is a nice way to have a website for free, at least while you're still in school, which is a cool option. Another option that's not quite a website, but it's pretty close, and it's a great way to show your work online if you don't want to go through all the kind of effort at this point of doing a website, is Behance. So many of you may know of Behance, but essentially what it is, it's the largest online portfolio community in the world. So it is the largest place online where creatives can create a profile and showcase their work. So by joining it, you're sort of accessing this huge network of fellow creatives, which is pretty cool. And RISD has its own kind of subsection or its own page on Behance where you can actually just see RISD work. So just to kind of give you a sense of what that looks like. So this is what the RISD Behance page looks like. So you can kind of see as you scroll through, you're able to get a sampling of RISD projects from both current students as well as alums. So this is something you can use at this moment and even after you graduate. So just to give you a sense of sort of the range of work. But then you can also look by specific areas. So in this case, you can kind of say like, oh, I kind of just want to see graphic design projects. And what's nice is you can use this as a way to see how people are showing their work. So again, if you're new to portfolios and you want to get a sense for how people are showing their work and displaying it, this can be a good way to sort of start to investigate that. And also you can narrow by creative field to make it relevant to what you're studying. I want to show you just from an alumni example. So this is Ari Winkle. He's been a professional for many, many years. So I don't want you to see this and be like, oh my God, my portfolio has to look like that. He's got a huge established track record of creating work. But this is what his portfolio looks like. And then you can click in and see specific projects like this growth project, which is this cool like typographic experiment that he did. And it's just, I'm kind of showing you this to give you a sense of like how a project looks, how a portfolio looks, and how a project looks on Behance, where you can show not just one image, but multiple images and walk people through a series of your work like this typographic experiment. So again, not to see this and be like intimidated, but to see the potential of what this can look like. So I just want you to be able to know what a Behance profile looks like and how you could use it for yourself, essentially. Make sense? Cool. Just to give the, again, just kind of touch on like the huge range of different kinds of projects that you might see on Behance, everything from ID and footwear to fine art and jewelry to furniture to illustration and painting to graphic design and everything in between. Yeah, go for it.
I do. Do you recommend having both a Behance and a personal website?
That is a great question. So the question was, actually, it was on the mic, so I don't need to repeat it. We're good. Yes, the short answer is yes. So I think it's actually a terrific idea. And you might have noticed actually in Ari's profile, they did just that. So Ari has his own website, but also has a Behance. And the reason why that can be effective, this is not a must, so you don't have to do this. But the reason why this can be effective is, you remember when I said Behance is like the #1 portfolio community in the world? So sometimes art directors, curators, etc., go on Behance to like see work and find talent. So by having your work there, it can be an exposure thing. People can find your work there. And then if you on your Behance profile have a link to your website, that can be a way to generate traffic towards your website. They might find you on Behance and then go to your website. So it's a great question. And the answer is doing both is probably a good idea. Again, it's not like mandatory, but it can be helpful, and it's totally fine to have both. So great question. Does that make sense? Does that answer your thought? Yeah, great. Yeah.
Is it like possible for people, like, if you're in a certain major, if the internship that associates different major, you're interested, or is that like?
I'm going to throw that one over to our internship manager, so I'll let Karen speak to internships.
Okay, so your question is, can you do an internship in a different major than you're studying?
Yeah.
Okay, yes. So it's just like winter session, you're able to take a class in a different department, so it's usually a non-major credit. So if you're like in graphic design and all of a sudden you're doing an industrial design internship, you can register it as a non-major credit.
Yeah, got it. Thanks, Karen. Any other questions? Both really good. Yeah, shoot. Yeah, we got two.
It's still about internship.
Yeah, sure.
It's like if the internship asks you to work for about like 6 months, but yeah, you have class. So for the other 3 months, what can you do for that?
Yeah, what do you do? Go ahead, Karen. You want to tackle that one?
So your question is, if it's a 6 months internship and you actually do it. Okay, that's a complicated question. Okay, because usually 6 months internships are usually part of a co-op. RISD has internships, but they're based on the semester. So like the fall semester, winter session, 5-week semester, spring semester, 13 weeks, and then the summer, which is anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 weeks. So kind of the short answer is RISD, it says no, because it will interfere with your classes. We've had students do that, but they had to take a leave of absence to do that. And so another piece of it too to consider is if you're international and you're doing a 6 month internship, you're here to study. So the visa that you have is really for the internship that happens within the semesters.
Yeah, and it's worth also maybe, as just a tag on to that, the most popular time at RISD for students to do internships is over the summer. The reason for that is it generally is a time where, you don't have class commitments, right? So it's a popular time for students to be able to like dive fully into an internship experience. It doesn't mean you have to do it in the summer necessarily, but it does tend to be the most common time. And it's also a time where there are a lot of available internships because companies and employers realize that that's a good time for students to be able to like be slightly disconnected from their studies. Yeah.
For internships across majors, do companies ask for portfolios, and if they do we prepare the portfolio as to like the internship major one,
yep.
or exclude best ones?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it actually sort of goes to kind of a broader, maybe a broader perspective on portfolio development, which is that, yes, your portfolio is a representation of you and your work, but it's also, what you're getting at is it's also used for a purpose, right? Its purpose, in the case you're talking about, is to try to secure an internship opportunity. And so your audience in that scenario is the company or entity that would be hiring you for an internship. And they do certain work, right? They make certain products, or they create certain artwork, or they do certain, design work for clients, whatever it is. They have a certain thing that they do. And so as much as possible, you want to try to align the work that you show them to work that they do. That doesn't mean it has to be 100% perfect, because we know and they know that you're like doing class assignments, and those aren't going to necessarily perfectly align with the work that they do. But essentially the essence of your question is, do you want to try to curate or kind of focus your portfolio towards the work of opportunities that you're applying to? And the short answer is yes, as much as you can. There's limits to how much you can do that. And there's also ways you can do that in terms of like what projects you highlight, how you highlight them, how you position them on your website. So this is all stuff that we would talk about in an advising meeting. But essentially the answer to your question is like, yeah, you do want to try to position your portfolio for the audience that's going to be seeing it. Does that answer that question? Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's a good thing. I'm glad it came up because it's a good thing to think about. And again, it's like sometimes easier said than done, and there are limits to how much you can do that. But over time, it's a good way to think about your portfolio in terms of applying to things.
I was wondering, as an international student, are there any exceptions that could be made to have an internship in the US for the summer?
I'll let the internship manager speak to that one too.
Doing an internship in the summer, as an international student, you have, all students have, they can do 2 internships for credit. So as an international student, you already can do an internship in the US because it's part of your educational package in a way. RISD, unlike other schools, don't charge you for internships in the summer. The only problem is the way RISD's internship works. For international students, you'd have to wait till next year, next summer, because you have to do a whole year before you're able to do an internship. Once you've done 3, fall, winter session, and spring to do an internship, but because you're a freshman and you're leaving your division, you're going into your selected major, and your major, so they are the ones to give you credit in the fall, but they don't know you. They haven't taught you anything. So, but yes, you do. You can do an internship in your home country.
Yeah, and I think one, just to tack on to that question, this is a complicated and layered thing, but sometimes it's okay to wait and it's okay to be patient. And I will say this, once you are in your major next year, it is a little easier oftentimes, just in terms of like securing an internship, like getting a company or an organization to offer you an internship. Because once you're in your major and you're taking classes in your major, you developed projects that can speak to the skills that you need for internships oftentimes. And you just have more of a, you can actually talk about the classes you're taking on your resume. There's all different kinds of things you can do to kind of position yourself as like a slightly stronger candidate. So I'm not saying like, it's an impossibility necessarily to like explore internships as a first year student. But I do think sometimes there's value in just sort of like waiting till the sophomore year until you're more established in your major track and kind of what you're studying and what you're learning. And I think it's a little easier, to be honest, to secure those internships. So it's just something to think about. Again, like, this is not me telling you what you must do, but I think it's a perspective sometimes that can be hard to think about when you're a first year student because you're just in the first year, but you get more skills as you go, and that can be an asset to you as you move through this. Yeah.
Like your chances at getting that internship if you tried once before and like didn't get it?
Yeah, probably positively though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So the question was like, if I apply to the same thing twice, so like, let's say I apply to an internship 1 year, don't get it, then apply to an internship again, is that okay? And the answer is, yeah, it's more than okay. It's actually probably a really good thing. So we have different interactions with recruiters and people who hire, and essentially the people at companies and studios that make decisions about hiring interns and full-time employees. And they care about like your persistence, because what that means, right, is that you cared enough about working at that place to go for it a second time. And that you weren't, not to mention that you weren't daunted by failure, which it also speaks to your quality of character. So yeah, like it's a good thing, actually. It will impact you, but only positively. So that's just another takeaway. Like, don't ever feel like just because you applied to something once that you can't apply again. And this kind of does connect to what I was saying before, which is like as time goes by, you might have new projects to show. You might have developed new studio skills. Maybe you joined another club at RISD that kind of shows leadership. There's all different kinds of things that can happen that might make you just a little bit of a stronger candidate and make the difference. So yeah, I said go for it, and it'll be a good thing. I want to just touch a little bit on how you can kind of start to explore what RISD alumni have done as a way to discover opportunities for yourself, as a way to sort of find models, role models, or examples of what you might do professionally. So there's many different ways you can do this, but in the interest of time, I'm going to just introduce you all to LinkedIn. Most of you probably know LinkedIn. Who has a profile on LinkedIn? A lot of you. So maybe 50 to 60% looks like. Cool. So that's a great starting point. LinkedIn as a tool for building relationships and as a tool for researching and exploring the professional world is really, really good. The platform is not perfect, but it can be really helpful with some things. And I just do want to just kind of like point out the fact that it's massive. So it's worldwide. So regardless of where you are from, where you want to work one day, chances are that there are people on LinkedIn in the country or region that you're targeting, which is just a really good reminder of how powerful it is in terms of connecting and exploring. It's also a good way to learn about companies and studios, which I'll kind of show you in a second. And if you want to kind of be brave and take it a next step, you could actually reach out and connect with alums that are exciting to you or inspiring to you. Maybe even, form, mentorship type relationships. So this is all like, I'm kind of planting the seed. This is stuff we could all talk about, but I'll just kind of show you how you can do this. So there's actually a RISD page on LinkedIn, and every college has this essentially, that you can kind of dive into and parse to find some really cool stuff. So this is the RISD page. You can literally just type in, if you're on LinkedIn, just type in Rhode Island School of Design, and this page will kind of show up in the search. On this page, you can click on this alumni tab, and what it shows you is like the 30,000 plus RISD alumni that are on LinkedIn. However, you don't want to just like start cruising through 30,000 profiles because that would be madness. So what you want to do is narrow it by areas of interest or your major. So in this, I kind of said like, okay, apparel and textiles is an area that maybe I'm majoring in or interested in. And so when you do that, it now limits it to the 700 alums who graduated from that department. And if I scroll down, I can actually see profile previews. I can actually see these people, who they are, where they work. And if I want to, like in the case of Kelsey here, I can click in and go to their profile, learn more about what they do, see examples of their work potentially, notice that their current role is as a design assistant at Misha and Puff. I can say, that's kind of a cool name. I wonder what that company is all about. I can click on it. I then get sent to Misha and Puff's LinkedIn page, where I can learn more about them. Included in that, I can click on their website and see their work. So that was like what, a minute and a half. And what I just wanted to like illustrate there is like a couple clicks, and I've already maybe kind of discovered a new company that I didn't know about that had hired a RISD alum. So it's a cool way to, again, just kind of explore what's out there, get familiar with different alumni career paths, see where they've wound up. And maybe in this instance, Misha and Puff is a place that I can start to think about for internships, for example. So you can kind of see how this all can work together, right? So getting towards the end here, I want to conclude by talking a little bit about grants, residencies, and awards, because this is something that can be a part of creative career paths, especially for fine artists, though not exclusively. And it's something that our office supports and also provides in some cases. So I'll explain what that means. But first, I want to just set the stage. So maybe you've heard these terms before, and maybe you know what they are, but maybe you don't. So what are grants and residencies? Well, the answer is it varies what exactly those two terms mean. But in a nutshell, grants or residencies tend to provide artists or designers with focused time, studio space, and physical resources to make work. So that's basically what a residency is, okay? Which, while you're in school, like, right now, you might not feel like you need these things, right? Like you've got time to do work, maybe not as much as you'd like, but you've got time to do work and you have access to studios and facilities to make it. And you've got the physical materials and resources to make it, right? But think about in the summer, when you're not here, do you have those things? Or when you graduate, do you have a studio, right? So right now, in this moment, you might not need these things, but when artists leave school or when they're kind of in between semesters, residencies can provide these types of opportunities for artists and these types of resources for artists. So there's a much bigger world to talk about when it comes to residencies, but that's just to kind of help you understand what they are. So they tend to be really, really good resources for artists to be able to create and make work. Grants are more like funding, cash, money, to be able to execute your creative projects. So usually the way that a grant might work is you have an idea for a series of art or a series of artwork or an artistic project of some kind that you want to execute, but you may need funds to be able to make that happen or happen in the way that you envision it at least. There are organizations out there that part of what they do is provide grant funding, provide cash to artists to be able to create what they want to create. Now, usually like the organization has a mission or values, and so they want like the artists that they give this money to sort of be aligned with their values and be creating work that aligns with their values in some way. But these are really cool things that you can tap into as an additional way to get money for materials or other resources for making the work that you want to make. Because that's a very common thing that professional artists tap into as well. The other form that like grants can take also is more, instead of like resources for materials or things like that to be able to make work, it can be funding for project research or travel that in some ways connects to the artistic work that you want to make. I'm going to show you an example of what this can look like in a minute, but there's all different kinds of grant funding that people can pursue. Our office actually provides some grants and awards and residencies to RISD students. So it's good, we call them RISD Career Center Managed Awards, but it's good for you to know about right now, even if this is something that might come into play a little bit more later on as you develop through RISD. I want you to know about this and know that these are things you can tap into at RISD. So basically what we offer kind of falls into three categories. Excuse me, funding for internship experiences. So if you need some additional funding to be able to cover costs related to an internship, we do have some grants related to that. I mentioned artist residencies, so we have some kind of fellowships and funds to help you attend some specific artist residencies. And then we also have some grants that can be applied to your creative artistic practice as well. A whole page on our website that breaks down all of these opportunities, which I encourage you to check out because it's super easy to kind of get a baseline on the different opportunities that we have. I'm going to highlight a few. So the RISD Harem Fellowship provides $5,000 for an unpaid summer internship in an organization where artists and designers are not typically found. So there's a couple different facets to this, but so for one, the internship has to be in a place where sort of like outside of the mainstream of where you might find artists. So for example, like this wouldn't be for, oh, I'm going to do an internship in a gallery, or I'm going to do an internship in a design firm. These are places where you might not expect to find an artist, but that's actually, or a designer, but that's really cool because it actually is a way for you to kind of like embed yourself in organizations that are, like I said, kind of non-traditional or where people might not expect to find you. The other thing is the intern, or you, if you were to get this, you have to be working to solve problems that either address social issues or climate change and sustainability related issues. So in one of those two categories, it doesn't have to be both. Your host organization, so the organization hiring you as an intern, has to be a nonprofit or a government organization. It can't be a for-profit company. So it has to be a nonprofit entity, again, that is working in these areas of either social justice or sustainability. And this is available to sophomores, juniors, seniors, fifth years, and grad students. So again, something to keep in mind for next year when internships really open up for you in a major way. But this is just a really, really cool opportunity to do an internship opportunity anywhere in the world, get $5,000 to do it. And again, it might be a really unique experience where artists and designers are not typically found. So it could be a really cool thing to add to your resume and a really cool experience. We also have another internship award called the Undergraduate Internship Grant. You have to kind of develop the internship. So in other words, you have to like identify a host organization that you want to work with. You have to, have conversations with them, secure the internship, and then apply. There's some like essay questions and stuff that you have to fill out. So it is an application process. However, I will say, so the application process is challenging, I won't lie, but in a normal year, we usually have only about 20 to 25 applicants and we can fund about 10. So those odds are pretty good. They're really good in terms of like grant and these types of applications in general. So it is a bit of an involved process, but your odds are pretty good if you can make it through. Say that again. You can only be awarded once. You can apply multiple times, but you can only be awarded once. Yeah, go for it.
Do you have any suggestions for how you would find like unconventional organizations?
Yeah. Short answer is if you're interested in this grant, come talk to us. But because like that's some one of the things we could talk about. Longer answer, especially for the nonprofit world, one of the best resources out there is a resource called Idealist. So it's like the word ideal with IST at the end. And on that platform, so backing up, that platform is one of the best ways on the internet to be able to find opportunities that are nonprofit, civic, social justice, community service oriented opportunities. But on their website, they have like a whole kind of directory where you can like say, all right, here's a topic area I'm interested in. So I don't know, it could be like, I'm interested in like urban housing development, for example. You can put that in and say, I'm from this state or this region, and it will kind of pull back organizations that are working on that topic. So that's a great way for you to be able to explore an issue area that you're interested in and find nonprofits that relate to it. So that's probably my one main piece of advice. Yeah.
Does it only count if are we only able to get like grant if it's specifically an internship, or is it also allowed if we found the nonprofit?
Repeat the second part of that. So if it's an internship
Like if we
or
created our own nonprofit.
you created your own nonprofit. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it is. Good question. It does have to be an internship oriented. So it is an internship experience based grant. So it does, or fellowship. So it does have to be, you've secured an internship with like an external organization. If you have founded your own nonprofit, there might be other things that you can tap into. And also, like we can talk more about that, but there's organizations on campus like eShip. I don't know if you're like engaged or involved with eShip, but it's like an entrepreneurial student club. And they actually have this program called Upstart, which helps students who are like founding their own thing, grow that organization, but also gain a little bit of funding for it too. So there are things that you can tap into that are not that grant, but we can talk more. Yeah, good question. The undergraduate internship grant is similar to the Harem, but a little bit different. So this is a little bit less money. It's $3,000. Where it is similar somewhat is that the focus is on internships that solve problems or address economic issues or address social issues. This one's a little bit broader though. So this can be at companies, they can be for profit, it can be at organizations, could even be at an artist studio or a gallery. So this one's pretty wide ranging in terms of where it can be. This is also open to first years if you are able to secure an internship in the summer of your first year. So this is an opportunity that you could conceivably do right now. And so this has some similarities to the Harem in that it's internship oriented and it's geared towards social issues or interns working in those areas, but it is a little bit different too. Last one for internships that I want to highlight. This is a bit more general, but we also do have a $1,000 award that students can apply to or receive. And this is essentially just sort of like, there's no criteria other than that you just have to have secured an internship. So you essentially just have to have like an offer letter from an organization saying they're hiring you as an intern. And you can get $1,000. This is also an application, so I do want to be clear about that. Like, there's not an infinite pool of money. There's not an infinite pool of $1,000 grants that people can receive, but this is if you need some additional funding to help cover costs for an internship, that there's a way to get it. This one is available only to sophomores, juniors, and seniors, as well as grad students. But it's, worth knowing about. Yeah. So this is more in the residency side of things. So Skowhegan is an artist residency in Maine, and you're kind of seeing, so it's in a very rural, kind of beautiful, bucolic setting in Maine. You're seeing an image there. It's one of the top artist residency programs in the country. So some of the most notable artists you can think of have attended this residency program. And it's essentially a 9-week period over the summer where you live and work on the Skowhegan campus, and you get to create work and experiment creatively, kind of in whatever way you want. What's cool about this is RISD has kind of a partnership. We have a partnership with them where if a RISD student or alum, it's open to both, if a RISD student or alum is accepted, the costs are covered. So normally there's about a $6,000 cost to attend this. It would be covered. So Skowhegan covers half and we would cover half. This is not our rule. Skowhegan does have a rule that you have to be 21 plus to attend this residency. So again, this might be sort of like a couple of years down the line. I'm pretty sure it's because they have alcohol there and they don't want to have to be managing that. So there's fun times outside of the studio at Skowhegan is the point. But seriously though, it's an amazing experience. Like I said, you get the $6,000 covered. That includes the fee. It includes housing, so they give you a place to stay, studio space, meals are covered while you're there. It's pretty amazing experience. So this is an example of a residency partnership that we have that you can apply to while you're a student here. On one of the past slides, I mentioned this idea of kind of travel for artistic research kind of a thing. And the Fulbright is sort of the prime example of this. So Fulbright's an amazing thing. So it essentially allows people to have a funded 9 to 12 month cross-cultural independent artistic research experience or project. Basically the way that it works is you can craft your own proposal and kind of propose that you're going to go live and work in a country for 9 to 12 months and explore a specific artistic technique or concept or idea that you could only do in that country. So you do have to kind of make it specific to the country and say this is why I need to be in country X, because this technique is really common there, or there's this aspect of the culture that I need to explore for my work, etc. And it's fully funded. You don't have to pay a single, for the most part, you don't have to pay a single dime to have that experience. You do have to affiliate with an organization in that country. It's usually universities or research centers or museums, institutions, etc. This is the Fulbright does kind of set the terms here, where this is an experience that you would do after you graduate, but you can begin to apply as soon as junior year. You can apply in junior, senior, 5th year. Graduate students can also apply as well. You can even apply after you graduate if you're a recent alum up to 3 years. So it's not something you have to do while you're here at RISD. But the reason I'm highlighting this is it's an amazing opportunity. And we have a member of our office who works with all the students who want to apply to this and will help them navigate the entire process, help them develop their proposals. And she's incredible. Her name's Lisa. She's an amazing, amazing member of our office. And going through the process of applying to a Fulbright, it's really daunting. It's hard work, but it really does prepare people to be able to kind of apply to any kind of grant or fellowship opportunity. And every time people go through this, they always talk about how it's a really rewarding experience, whether they get the grant or not. And it's a really unique opportunity. So I just wanted to spend some time to highlight it. recap. Make appointments, come to drop-ins, reach out to us if you need us. Like, we're here to help you. So don't be shy. Check out those programs I was talking about. Again, you're at one right now. Hopefully this was helpful and useful. We have more of them. Come to more. They're great ways to sort of get exposure to the career development stuff that you need as you move through Rizzy. Not to put too much pressure on you, but begin, if you haven't already, maybe start to dabble in like developing a resume, starting to develop an online portfolio. Those are the two biggies. There are some others, but those would be the two that I would focus on and maybe start to play around with and get feedback on from us. And then, like I talked about, how you can use Artworks to start to explore internships and jobs. You can attend Internship Connect next year. You can see what alumni are doing on LinkedIn. Just start to explore what's out there professionally. Start to puncture that RISD bubble, like we were talking about, because college is awesome. You'll love it. This will be an incredible experience. It'll go by quick, always does. And so before you know it, you'll be waiting to graduate. You'll be like, graduation will be 2-3 weeks ahead. And I know it sounds crazy to say that, but it will happen. And if you can do these things along the way, you're going to feel just much more confident about kind of exiting that RISD bubble and moving on to that next thing. Instead of, if you put it all off and don't think about it until the end, then it's going to kind of feel big and daunting. So if you can do this stuff in chunks, start now, you're gonna be in good shape. So that's what I have to share. Don't forget to reach out to us, come see us, email us, phone, you know where we're located.